What's up, everybody? I'm Yaasha. Welcome to Money Law. Today, we've got two special guests from COPA Design, Jason and Rodrigo. Both of them are joining me on a live chat today to be able to talk to you on how to protect your brand for your business. And I'm going to chime in with some ideas on how to be aware of your trademark rights. So, Jason, tell me a little bit about your company.
My name is Jason, and I'm the president and CEO of COPA Design. We're a creative agency based out of Santa Clara, and we essentially bring ideas to life. We create visual identities. We do a lot of graphic design in the print and digital world. And really our main thing is we create stories and we create brands. That's what we do.
So Rodrigo, a little bit more, what goes into designing a logo?
When designing a logo, we start by thinking about the problem, which is we need to have a brand to represent the company. From there, we need to think of solutions for the problem and how those solutions can look so as they stand out to the public. And then we start the research for that part. And as soon as we have the real solution that we're gonna aim for, we start designing and the ideation process starts. So yeah, it's maybe 4 steps, and then the fourth is actually putting the logo and the brand together and the visual identity itself and presenting everything to the client.
So if either of you can answer this for me, have you ever had any issues with designing a logo that kind of looks like another trademark logo or another brand? And how did you deal with that with your clients? Here's a great obvious example. Let's say there's a company that uses a logo like Nike swoosh, that little check mark that you see on all the shoes, all the jerseys, right? And how does that stand up to somebody that wants to use a similar logo on a completely different product?
We have, I won't name company names, but we have had issues on both ends. Sometimes people are very adamant in terms of they can envision something that somebody else already utilizes, not because they necessarily want to, not necessarily because they want to use that specific logo. So let's say, like you mentioned, a swoosh, Nike. There are people who say, I want this type of element in it. There are other people who will say, I'm adamant on having this specific swoosh. And that's where we have to come in and say, we can't do that, right? Not because you can get in trouble, but we can get in trouble as a creative agency as well. So that's part of the conversation of saying, well, if you like the swoosh, but why, right? And that's where we can start extracting, well, I like the movement, I like this, I like that aspect. And that's where we can start kind of drilling down of they may not necessarily like the swoosh. That's just their representative way of saying it, but they just may want something such as movement in their logo. And we typically with us, we do research in terms of what are they wanting to create and what does that really look like? And if it's something that's pretty obvious, we will then show the client and tell the client, this can give the impression of this. Our job as creators is we want to create, we don't want to copy. And so for us, everything that we do, we try to be unique, but that doesn't happen all of the time. And so typically that's when we'll say, we will do a research, we'll provide you with some references, but you should probably talk to an attorney as well to get some legal advice, because we wouldn't want to get into hot water and or get so far along in the process to where we have to redo everything, because then that's just time, effort, and money that the client's already spent.
I've had a similar experience as well, and there's a whole area of law around this. Let me tell you about it. So imagine if someone comes up to Jason and Rodrigo and says, I have a computer company or I have an electronics company and I want the swoosh to be kind of a check mark, you're done, you've got the job done. Whatever the reason, if the logo turns out to be something like a swoosh and they're doing electronics, that's not necessarily the swoosh as we all know it is Nike's brand. That's not necessarily Nike's product. But when it comes to trademarks, we don't necessarily care that a famous brand that has that swoosh is on some other product that everybody knows. Nike isn't in consumer electronics. Nike doesn't sell computers. They sell sports equipment, sportswear, shoes, right? But there is a threshold that can happen to brands, and this can happen to any brand, where you become so famous as a brand that if anyone else uses that swoosh logo on any other product for whatever reason, even though it's not directly related to Nike's business, Nike can come after those people, our customers, our clients, and say, you are diluting our brand. You are using the swoosh in a way that, yeah, it's not our business, but our swoosh now is so famous, so valuable. We put millions, hundreds of millions of dollars into marketing this swoosh. So everyone recognizes it 100% as our brand, our logo. You're watering it down. And they can come after you, and that's almost the exact same kind of legal lawsuit as if you had legitimately copied someone else and are competing against them with the same brand. It's an infringement. So are there advantages or disadvantages for using your own name as the brand or the name of your company? And what are your guys' experience with that?
I mean, for us as a company, when we're creating something like that, I wouldn't see it as an issue. The challenge that our clients may face as they grow is exactly what Yaasha had mentioned. If the brand takes off and they become so famous, and if they end up eventually maybe selling that brand to somebody else, they may lose the rights to their own name. And so it's one of those things for us, we will have those conversations with our clients. But in terms of utilizing a name, personally, I don't think there's an issue with it. I guess what I want to say is we just need to make sure it's the right fit, right? Because just because you want to name it after you, doesn't necessarily mean that's going to work the best in the market. So that's, again, just going back to the conversation of, yeah, we can make it any name you want. It can go either way, but is it the right name for what you're trying to accomplish?
Those are very interesting points. We actually do face some of that together with my own clients on the legal side with some trademark issues. This is actually why I like working with designers like Jason and Rodrigo, is because they're not attorneys, but they know what's up. And they have the experience to be aware and point out to their customers things that can cost their customers down the line. And a lot of designers, they don't talk about this. They're more focused on getting the design done and making their money, right? If you put your name on a brand, imagine Tory Burch, imagine Chanel. These are people's names that were put on their brands. So if your brand takes off, Tory Burch is a great example. Her brand took off. Her name is on that brand. She's not 100% owner of her company. She had a husband who helped invest in her company, and they both own the company together. His last name is Burch as well. And when they got a divorce, now they have a problem because he's taking ownership of the company, which the company owns the name brand. That if she wants to leave that company and start a whole new designer company all on her own, she most certainly cannot call it Tory Burch anymore, even though it's her name, because when you use your name as your own brand and you build a company and the company takes off, most likely the entity that you created, that company, the corporation, that is going to own the trademark. And if you want to walk away someday, or if you want to sell the business, you're selling your name and likeness with that brand. And you will not be able to use it again for whatever reason, even if you're doing a wholly separate business. So Tory Burch does accessories, designer materials, and all that kind of stuff. Let's say she wants to start a fast food restaurant called Tory Burch. Would she be able to do that? No, because just of what we were talking about before with dilution, the Tory Burch brand is now world known. It's so huge, no one can use that name for any other business now because they would be watering down the original brand. And that is a risk. It's not a bad idea. She still owns the company. She's still doing great. Her name is the brand, and she's grown huge as an icon herself because she's built this massive clothing and accessory and apparel company. But she was willing to take that risk. And for a lot of my clients, I have the exact same conversation that Jason has. I don't have a problem with my clients naming the brand, but I let them know, hey, This is a risk. What's your exit strategy with this business? Do you want to have this business for the rest of your life? For the rest of your life? Is it something that you're really passionate about? Or are you thinking about getting investors, maybe one day having an IPO or getting bought out? If you have an actual exit where you want to leave your business one day, you know that you're not going to do it forever, then putting your name on the company might not be the wisest move. And let's say you put your name on it today while you're young, you're small, it's still a startup, and then you'll say, oh, I'll just rebrand later on. Well, guess what? Rebranding costs a ton of money, so much money, especially if your business takes off and you're starting to make some real revenue. You've got your name brand on all kinds of sales collateral, marketing, contracts. And to change that name, it can cost a company up to a few $1,000,000 to even $100 million. So it's something very serious to think about at the very beginning. So Rodrigo, why is it important for a company to have a logo?
Whenever you think of a brand or when you think of a product, you always have something on your mind related to the product. It's not the product itself, it's the logo. So when you think of COPA, you're not thinking of Jason's face, you're thinking of the COPA logo. And you're thinking of Nike, you're thinking of the swoosh, you're not thinking about the product without any name on it. That's why they sell and that's why they can charge what they do for it. So yeah, the logo is your identification, is like your avatar outside. And it's not your face and it's not your painting, it's not your thing you like, it's what identifies your company. And that's what's important, not actually having something that the client wants on a logo, but something that is helpful for him to be reminded of always.
So Jason, what is it like to work with you guys and your team?
So working with us, it's a lot of fun. I think we're a bunch of creatives. Designers are a different breed, very emotional, very passionate people, and we express that through the creative designs that we make. To work with us, it's not very difficult. It's really just sitting down and figuring out what is it that you're looking for. And really, we have a lot of clients that'll come to us and say, I just need a brochure, I need a flyer, I need this or I need that. But it allows us an opportunity to actually have a conversation with them and explore other things in their business that they may not have thought about. And I believe that's probably one of our differentiating factors from a lot of other companies. We're not freelancers. We're not guys who's taking on any projects. We're actually a creative agency focused on creating a quality product. Our goal is to create these brands, these multi-million-dollar brands. And we go into every single project thinking that way. If it doesn't matter the cost that a client pays for us, we're still going to give them that $1 million service. Because for us, you never know. We've had clients that have taken a long time, kind of like the bamboo shoot, right? It takes forever to plant its roots, but once it does, it grows really fast. And so we are always willing and open to work with any company in terms of, exploring their ideas. And again, it's just simple as giving us a call or setting up an email or right now, setting up a Zoom call, just figuring out what they want to do.
One of the biggest issues that people have is they think they can choose any name that they want and make that their brand. The problem they face is not necessarily in the design phase, it's in the protection phase, the legal protection phase. If you try to get a trademark on a name or a brand that is considered descriptive, for instance, it just describes what you're doing. I create a brand, maybe a restaurant, and I call it the Nile River, right? Nile River is kind of a description. Maybe you're serving Egyptian food, maybe you're serving fresh organic food. If it is literally a restaurant at the Nile River, then the trademark office will say, that's descriptive. You're describing your brand based on where you're located, right? But if I have a fast food restaurant that sells burritos and I call it the Nile River, then it's not descriptive at all. It's probably just unique or suggestive. And that is the realm you want to be in with trademarks. So for instance, Apple Computer, Apple. Apple is something we already know. It is a name, it's a fruit. And when you think of Apple, you think of this fruit. But then when you think of electronics and the name Apple, that's not descriptive. Electronics have nothing to do with fruit, right? It's not suggestive. It's not suggesting that you're going to be eating fruit if you buy our electronic products. It's something actually totally unique and random. So that's what makes it so strong as a name. Another thing to consider though is, and if you're fortunate enough where your brand becomes so wildly successful and huge, and you've created this one product, and anytime someone wants to refer to the use of that product, there is a chance your brand might become generic. Oh my gosh, and we call it genericide. This was actually an awesome brand that you guys are aware of, Xerox. This was actually going to happen to them. When the copy machines came out back in the late 70s, early 80s, a lot of people were saying, hey, instead of saying go copy that or go make a copy, they're saying, hey, did you Xerox that? Go ahead and Xerox that for me. Hey, can you make a Xerox of this, right? Just by turning your name into an actual word that's used in common language that gets almost put in a dictionary, that can genericize your brand to the point where Xerox had to have a whole marketing campaign to re-educate everyone that, hey, you're not Xeroxing, you are copying with Xerox, right? Google even almost got into that point when it started growing so fast as a search engine. People would always ask, no matter what search engine you're using, you're probably on Yahoo, you're probably on Bing, and you're saying, I'm Googling it right now. If you're on Bing and you're saying, I'm Googling it, chances are you are turning Google's word into a generic word that becomes a common word we use in our language. And there was a risk that Google was about to lose their trademark, their values. So these are the things you want to be careful of. If you're going to create a brand, whether for your entire business or a specific brand for a type of product, make sure the way your consumers interact with that product is not in a way where that is how they refer to the action of using that product or consuming it. It's more so just referring to the product itself. Trademarks, branding, the law, it's all about likelihood of confusion and whether or not it is a common word we use in our everyday language. If it's a common word we use in our everyday language, or if you have a brand that's going to get confused with someone else's brand, you are walking the realm of losing your brand and being forced to rebrand later on in life. And it can become very expensive. So whenever I have a lot of clients that come from Jason and Rodrigo over to us, and I love seeing their work because they're one of the top designers I've actually seen in my field. And when I see their work is always great. It's perfect. It's the brand itself. I'm looking just at how the logo represents to other competitors, as well as the name. And I'm trying to make sure that the name, what Jason and Rodrigo had spent so many hours working on, is not going to get thrown away by the government because it's either generic or descriptive. We want to make sure that there's some uniqueness to that name, or at least a secondary meaning if it is descriptive of what it is that you're selling, and then go from there. All right, everyone, thanks for joining us today on Money Law. I want to thank Jason and Rodrigo, our top designers, for being here with us. For those of you interested in having real designers help you with your brand, real designers that don't just care about getting the job done in the transaction, they care about you and your business, go visit COPA.design. Thanks for joining us. My name's Yaasha Saba. Subscribe to this channel if you like the tidbits that we're giving you. Remember, is it your money or theirs?